Hello there, my sleepy warriors, and tonight we journey to the misty mountains of feudal Japan, where ancient samurai legends whisper through the cherry blossoms and honor flows like sacred rivers through the souls of legendary warriors. If you enjoy these mystical tales of courage and wisdom, please like, subscribe, and consider supporting the channel on Patreon, where you can access our exclusive content and early releases. But for now, let's settle into the tranquil world of the samurai, where every breath carries the scent of incense and every heartbeat echoes with the drums of destiny. In the shadow of Mount Fuji, where morning mist dances between ancient pine trees and the first rays of sunlight paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson, there lived a young samurai named Kiyoshi. His name meant pure, and indeed, his heart burned with a purity of purpose that few warriors ever possessed. But tonight, dear sleepy souls, we shall discover that even the purest hearts must face the darkness within to find their true strength. The year was 1185, during the final days of the Heian period, when the very foundations of Japan trembled beneath the weight of civil war. The Taira and Minamoto clans clashed like thunder across the land, their armies leaving scars upon the earth that would take generations to heal. Yet, in the remote mountain village of Shirakawa, where time seemed to move as slowly as the ancient river that carved its way through the valley, young Kiyoshi trained under the watchful eye of his master, Sensei Takeshi. But what secret did this peaceful village hide? What ancient power slumbered beneath its tranquil surface? These questions would soon pull Kiyoshi into a journey that would test not only his skill with the blade, but the very essence of his soul. Sensei Takeshi was not like other masters. His eyes held the wisdom of centuries, though he appeared to be no more than 50 years old. His movements flowed like water, yet struck with the force of mountains. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of ancient truths that seemed to resonate from the very stones beneath their feet. Kiyoshi, he would say, a samurai's greatest weapon is not his sword, but his spirit, and the sharpest spirit is one that has been tempered by both light and shadow. Each morning, as the temple bells rang across the misty valley, Kiyoshi would begin his training. First came the meditation, sitting in perfect stillness as the world awakened around him. He would focus on his breathing, feeling the ki, the life force, flow through his body like a gentle stream. Then came the kata, the precise movements that connected body, mind, and spirit in a dance as old as the mountains themselves. But it was during the evening lessons that Sensei Takeshi would share the most profound teachings. As they sat beside the crackling fire, with shadows dancing on the paper walls of the dojo, the old master would speak of the legendary sword called Kokoro no Yaiba, the blade of the heart. This was no ordinary weapon, but a mystical blade that could only be wielded by one whose honor was absolute and whose spirit was pure. Long ago, Sensei Takeshi would begin, his voice dropping to a whisper that seemed to merge with the sound of the wind through the bamboo groves. There lived a samurai named Hayato, whose skill with the blade was matched only by his compassion for all living things. When dark forces threatened to consume the land, the kami, the spirits of nature, forged for him a sword that contained the very essence of honor itself. Kiyoshi's eyes would grow wide as his master continued the tale. But Hayato knew that such power was too great for any one person to possess. Before his death, he scattered the sword into 3 pieces, hiding them in sacred places across Japan. The blade would only reform when a warrior of pure heart sought it not for personal glory, but to protect others from the darkness that eternally seeks to consume the light. What Kiyoshi didn't know was that his master had been searching for these fragments for decades, following clues hidden in ancient texts and whispered legends. And now, as war ravaged the land and darkness seemed to be winning, the time had come to attempt the quest that had consumed his life. The moment that would change everything came on a night when the moon hung like a silver mirror in the star-studded sky. Kiyoshi had been practicing his sword work in the courtyard, his blade singing through the air in precise flowing arcs. Suddenly, the temperature dropped, and a mist began to rise from the ground, carrying with it the scent of cherry blossoms and something else, something ancient and otherworldly. From the mist emerged a figure that made Kiyoshi's blood run cold. It was a woman, beautiful beyond mortal comprehension, yet her eyes held a sadness that seemed to encompass all the suffering in the world. She wore the white robes of a shrine maiden, but there was something ethereal about her presence, as if she existed between the world of the living and the realm of spirits. "Kiyoshi of the pure heart," she spoke, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "I am Yuki, guardian of the sacred mountain. Your master has prepared you well, but the time has come for you to face your true destiny." The young samurai's hand instinctively moved to his sword hilt, but something in the spirit's manner stayed his hand. "What destiny do you speak of, honored spirit?" Yuki smiled, and for a moment the sadness in her eyes was replaced by something that might have been hope. "The darkness that your master has long fought against is rising. The demon lord Yamata no Orochi stirs in his prison beneath the earth, and his servants spread chaos across the land. Only the blade of the heart can seal him away once more, but the quest to find its fragments will test you in ways you cannot imagine." As if summoned by her words, Sensei Takeshi appeared from the shadows of the dojo, his face grave but determined. "Kiyoshi, my faithful student, the time has come for you to leave this peaceful valley and venture into the world beyond. But know that this journey will demand everything you are and everything you hope to become." The young samurai felt a mixture of fear and excitement course through his veins. "Master, if this is my path, then I will walk it with honor. But why me? Surely there are warriors more skilled, more experienced. Skill can be taught. Experience can be gained," Sensei Takeshi interrupted gently. "But purity of heart, that is a gift that cannot be learned. It can only be preserved or lost. And you, my dear student, possess something that I have spent my lifetime searching for in others: the ability to see light, even in the deepest darkness." But what tests awaited Kiyoshi on this mysterious quest? What price would he have to pay for the power to save his land? These questions lingered in the air like incense smoke as the spirit Yuki began to fade back into the mist. "The first fragment lies in the Temple of Echoing Winds, high in the mountains to the north," she whispered as her form grew translucent. "But beware, young warrior. The temple is guarded by more than stone and steel. Your own heart will be your greatest ally and your greatest enemy." As dawn approached, Kiyoshi prepared for his departure. He packed light, his swords, a few provisions, and a small statue of the Buddha that his master had given him years ago. But the most important thing he carried was invisible. The years of training, the wisdom of his master, and the burning desire to protect the innocent. Sensei Takeshi walked with him to the edge of the village, where the mountain path disappeared into the morning mist. "Remember, Kiyoshi," the old master said, placing a weathered hand on his student's shoulder. "True strength comes not from defeating your enemies, but from understanding them. The darkness you will face is not separate from you. It lives within all of us. Only by acknowledging it can you truly overcome it." The journey to the Temple of Echoing Winds took 3 days through treacherous mountain passes and ancient forests, where the trees seemed to whisper secrets in languages older than memory. On the first night, as Kiyoshi made camp beside a crystal-clear stream, he encountered his first test. The attack came without warning. Shadow creatures, born from the collective fears and hatreds of the war-torn land, emerged from the darkness like living nightmares. Their forms shifted and writhed, sometimes appearing as fallen warriors, sometimes as the twisted spirits of the battlefield dead. Their eyes burned with malevolent fire, and their voices spoke words of doubt and despair. "Why do you fight, young samurai?" they hissed as they circled him like wolves. "Your land is already lost. Your people suffer while you chase legends and fairy tales. Abandon this foolish quest and save yourself." But Kiyoshi's training held true. He drew his sword not in anger, but in calm determination. "I fight because it is right," he said simply. "And I will not abandon hope while there is still light in the world." The battle was fierce, but brief. The shadow creatures, formed from negative emotions, could not stand against the pure intent of a warrior who fought not for glory or revenge, but for love of his people. As his blade cut through their forms, they dissolved like smoke, their dying whispers carrying a strange note of gratitude. It was then that Kiyoshi began to understand his master's words. These creatures were not truly evil. They were the manifestations of suffering, of pain that had nowhere else to go. By facing them with compassion rather than hatred, he had not destroyed them, but freed them from their torment. The second day brought different challenges. The mountain path led through a village that had been abandoned during the war, its houses standing empty like the hollow eyes of skulls. Here, Kiyoshi encountered not monsters, but memories. The spirits of the former inhabitants appeared to him, not as threats, but as reminders of what he was fighting to protect. An elderly woman, her form translucent and shimmering, approached him as he rested in the village square. "My grandson was a samurai like you," she said softly. "He died believing he was protecting us. But in the end, we all died anyway. Tell me, young warrior, what makes your quest different from his?" The question struck Kiyoshi like a physical blow. What if his master was wrong? What if this quest was just another form of the same violence that had torn the land apart? For a moment, doubt crept into his heart like poison. But then he remembered Yuki's words about the demon lord Yamata no Orochi, and he understood. His grandson had died fighting other men, trapped in a cycle of violence and revenge. But this quest was different. It was about confronting the source of that violence, the ancient evil that fed on conflict and suffering. His death was not in vain, Kiyoshi told the spirit gently. Every act of courage, every moment of sacrifice, builds the foundation for the peace that is to come. I do not seek to win a war, honored grandmother. I seek to end the need for war itself. The old woman's spirit smiled, and as she faded away, Kiyoshi felt a warm presence settle over him like a protective blessing. He was not alone on this journey. The spirits of all those who had fought and died for justice walked beside him. On the third day, as the Temple of Echoing Winds finally came into view, Kiyoshi faced his greatest test yet. The temple stood on a narrow ledge high above the clouds, its pagoda roof gleaming in the afternoon sun. But the path to reach it was guarded by a figure that made his blood run cold. Another samurai, one whose skill seemed to match his own. This guardian was no spirit or shadow creature, but a living man whose presence radiated power and danger. His armor was black as midnight, and his eyes held the cold gleam of perfect technique divorced from all emotion. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of one who had never known defeat. I am Kenshin, guardian of this sacred place, he announced, his hand resting casually on his sword hilt. None may pass without proving their worth in single combat. Are you prepared to die for your beliefs, young idealist? But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn, dear sleepy warriors. As Kiyoshi faced this seemingly impossible opponent, he realized that this too was a test, not of his skill with a blade, but of his wisdom in knowing when not to fight. I am prepared to die if necessary, Kiyoshi replied, his own hand moving to his sword. But I would rather live, and help others live as well. Is there no other way to prove my worth? Kenshin's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. In all my years guarding this temple, you are the first to ask that question. Very well, I will give you a choice. Defeat me in combat, and you may pass. Or, answer a single question truthfully, and I will judge whether you are worthy. I choose the question, Kiyoshi said without hesitation. Then answer me this, Kenshin said, his stern features softening slightly. What is the heaviest burden a samurai can carry? The young warrior thought carefully, remembering all his master's teachings, all the spirits he had encountered, all the suffering he had witnessed. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but certain. The heaviest burden a samurai can carry is the knowledge that every life he fails to save, every moment of peace he fails to preserve, adds weight to his soul. We do not fight because we love violence. We fight because we love life so much that we cannot bear to see it destroyed by darkness. Kenshin stared at him for a long moment, then slowly nodded. You understand. The true warrior's burden is not the weight of his sword, but the weight of his compassion. You may pass, Kiyoshi of the pure heart, but know that what awaits you in the temple will test that compassion in ways you cannot imagine. The Temple of Echoing Winds was ancient beyond measure, its wooden beams worn smooth by centuries of mountain winds. Inside, the air was thick with incense and the whispered prayers of generations of monks. At the center of the main hall stood a statue of the Buddha, serene and eternal, and before it, lay a simple wooden box. But as Kiyoshi approached the box, the temperature in the temple began to drop. Frost formed on the windows, and his breath came out in visible puffs. The peaceful atmosphere was shattered by a sound that chilled him to the bone, the laughter of something that had never known mercy. From the shadows behind the statue emerged the source of this unholy mirth. It was a demon, but not the crude, bestial creature that legends often described. This being was beautiful in a terrible way, its features perfect, yet somehow wrong, as if beauty itself had been twisted into something alien and threatening. "Welcome, little samurai," it purred, its voice like silk wrapped around steel. "I am Kaj, the shadow that lives in every heart. You seek the fragment of the blade of the heart, do you not? It rests in that box, so close you could touch it. But first, you must defeat me, and I cannot be conquered by any earthly blade." Kiyoshi drew his sword, but even as he did, he felt the truth of the demon's words. This was not a creature of flesh and blood, but something far more dangerous, a manifestation of the darkness that existed within all living things. How could he fight something that was, in essence, a part of himself? "You understand now," Cage continued, circling him like a predator. "I am your anger, your fear, your pride, your despair. I am every dark thought you have ever had, every moment of weakness you have ever experienced. Strike me down, and you strike down yourself. Embrace me, and I will give you power beyond imagining." The demon's words seemed to echo in the very air around them, and Kiyoshi felt something stirring within his chest, a cold, hungry feeling that whispered of easy solutions and violent shortcuts. For a moment, he wavered, seeing flashes of what he could accomplish if he simply gave in to the darkness. But then he remembered his master's teachings and the spirits who had blessed his journey, and most importantly, the old woman in the abandoned village who had asked him what made his quest different. The answer came to him not as words, but as a deep, unshakable certainty. "You are right," he said quietly, lowering his sword. "You are a part of me, and I cannot destroy you without destroying myself. But that does not mean I must be controlled by you." Cage's perfect features twisted with confusion and rage. "What trick is this? You cannot simply ignore me." "I am not ignoring you," Kiyoshi replied, his voice growing stronger. "I am acknowledging you. You are my capacity for anger, which can drive me to fight injustice. You are my fear, which keeps me cautious and protects those I love. You are my pride, which gives me the strength to stand up for what is right. You are my despair, which helps me understand the suffering of others." As he spoke, something extraordinary happened. The demon's form began to shimmer and change, its terrible beauty transforming into something else entirely. The darkness was still there, but it was no longer twisted or malevolent. Instead, it had become a shadow in the truest sense, not the absence of light, but the necessary contrast that gave light its meaning. You have not defeated me," Cage whispered, its voice now filled with wonder rather than malice. "You have accepted me, and in accepting you, I have found balance," Kiyoshi replied. "A warrior who knows only light becomes blind to the suffering of others." A warrior who knows only darkness becomes lost in that suffering. But a warrior who understands both can walk the path between them. The demon, no, the shadow, bowed deeply to him. You have learned the first great lesson of the blade of the heart. Take the fragment, young samurai. But know that 2 more tests await you, and each will be more difficult than the last. With reverent hands, Kiyoshi opened the wooden box. Inside, wrapped in silk that seemed to glow with its own inner light, lay a piece of metal that hummed with power. It was perhaps a third of a sword blade, and even this fragment radiated an aura of justice and protection that made his heart sing. But as he lifted it from the box, a vision flashed before his eyes, a vision of what was to come. He saw the second fragment, hidden in a temple beneath the waves where the spirits of the drowned waited in eternal sadness. He saw the third fragment, guarded by a trial that would force him to choose between his own life and the lives of others. And he saw something else, a darkness rising from the depths of the earth, something so ancient and terrible that it made the demon Keiji seem like a whisper in comparison. Yamata no Orochi was indeed stirring, and time was running short. As Kiyoshi made his way back down the mountain path, the first fragment of the blade of the heart carefully wrapped and secured at his side, he carried with him more than just a piece of mystical metal. He carried the knowledge that true strength came not from denying one's weaknesses, but from understanding and accepting them. He carried the wisdom that even the darkest heart could be illuminated by compassion. The mist that had surrounded the mountain began to lift as he descended, and in the distance, he could see the lights of villages and towns, where people lived and loved and hoped despite the darkness that threatened their world. These were the people he had sworn to protect, not as a distant ideal, but as individuals whose lives had value and meaning. As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, Kiyoshi found himself thinking of his master, of the spirit Yuki, and of all the lessons he had learned on this first part of his journey. The path ahead would be long and dangerous, but he no longer walked it alone. He carried with him the blessings of spirits, the wisdom of his master, and most importantly, the understanding that even in the darkest times, there was always a choice between destruction and creation, between fear and hope. The fragment of the blade of the heart pulsed gently against his side, its power growing stronger with each act of compassion, each moment of understanding, each step along the path of true honor. Soon, he would need to find the second fragment, and then the third. Only then could he face the ultimate test, the confrontation with the demon lord whose very existence threatened to plunge the world into eternal darkness. But that, dear sleepy warriors, is a tale for another night. For now, as the mountain winds carry the scent of cherry blossoms and the sound of temple bells rings softly in the distance, let us rest in the knowledge that even in the darkest times, there are those who will stand against the night. Let us find peace in the understanding that honor is not about being without fear, but about acting with compassion despite that fear. As you drift off to sleep, carry with you the image of young Kiyoshi, walking the mountain path with the first fragment of the blade of the heart at his side, his spirit strengthened by the knowledge that true power comes not from the sword, but from the heart that guides it. In dreams, perhaps you too will walk among the cherry blossoms, finding your own path to balance, your own moment of perfect understanding where light and shadow dance together in eternal harmony. Sleep well, my peaceful warriors, and may your dreams be filled with the gentle wisdom of the samurai, where honor flows like mountain streams and peace settles over the land like morning mist. The path of the warrior continues, but for now, rest is the greatest victory of all.